The movie opens up with a Vietnam War veteran, John Rambo, who makes his way to a lake house in search of an old comrade named Delmar Berry. Unfortunately, when he reaches there, he learns that Delmar passed away more than a year ago due to cancer. He was apparently exposed to harmful gases during the war, and he struggled to live after he was released. Filled with sorrow, Rambo offers his condolences to the soldier's widow and gives her a photo of Delmar with him and the rest of their unit. Continuing his travels on foot, Rambo enters a small town named Hope, looking for a meal and possibly a hotel to spend the night. However, his appearance, with his lengthy hair and military-style coat, catches the attention of the town's vigilant and paranoid sheriff, Will Teasel. Rambo is then driven to the outskirts of the town, and the sheriff explains that his job is to keep drifters out. But despite this, Rambo ignores the sheriff's warning and walks back into the town again. This causes Will to become enraged, and as a result, Rambo is arrested on charges of vagrancy, resisting arrest, and carrying a concealed knife. A big-ass knife. During his time at the police station, Rambo refuses to cooperate with the cops for some paperwork. This prompts the officers, led by the cruel chief deputy Art Galt, to subject him to harsh treatment that triggers flashbacks of the torture he endured during the war in Vietnam. Rambo is ordered to strip, after which Art hits him in the lower back with his baton. Then, Art instructs another fellow officer to spray Rambo with a fire hose in order to clean him up. When they attempt to shave him using a straight razor, Rambo loses control of his emotions. He starts getting into a brawl and takes down all the police officers with his deadly moves. Shortly after, he reclaims his knife, steals a random motorcycle from the road, and makes his escape. Will pursues him in his police car along mountain roads to the woods, but the chase ends when the car flips over. In the meantime, Rambo loses the motorcycle and runs into the woods. Will, who manages to survive, soon organizes a search team equipped with automatic weapons, dogs, and a helicopter, as well as a full squad of hot dog bellies and misguided egos. While making his way up the mountain, Rambo discovers an old piece of canvas and some wire. Resourcefully, he crafts these materials into a makeshift tunic for himself. As he tries to elude capture, he comes across the edge of a steep cliff, so he decides to slowly climb down. But as he is about to do so, Art spots him from the helicopter and opens fire. This leaves our hero with no choice, so he impulsively leaps off the cliff. The fall doesn't result in Rambo's demise, as a cluster of trees cushion his landing, but his right arm gets injured in the process, but not injured enough to keep him from firing an M60 standing up. We'll get to that. While Art continues to shoot, Rambo takes cover behind a tree. Soon after, he counters Art's attack by hurling a rock towards the helicopter, shattering its windshield and momentarily disrupting the pilot's control. As a consequence, Art loses his balance and falls to his death on the jagged rocks below. In the aftermath of these events, Rambo tends to a deep cut in his arm and then tries to turn himself in, asserting that Art's demise was an accident and that he doesn't want to hurt anyone any longer. However, the officers respond with gunfire, compelling Rambo to retreat into the woods. A short while later, Will and his deputies receive communication via radio from a fellow officer at the base. This communication discloses that the man they are pursuing is John Rambo, a Vietnam veteran, Green Beret, and Congressional Medal of Honor recipient. This revelation instills fear in most of the deputies, especially the wily Ginger, but Will remains determined to seek revenge. In the next scene, Will leads his deputies on a manhunt into the rugged forest, but his team fears that Rambo could potentially reverse the roles and begin hunting them instead. Their fear eventually comes true, as Rambo subdues the small and disorganized police team using non-lethal guerrilla tactics and booby traps. He severely wounds all the deputies, one after another. When Will is the last man standing, a heavily camouflaged Rambo confronts him with a knife to the throat. He threatens the sheriff to give up the pursuit, or else he will give them a war which they won't believe. With this cautionary message, Rambo fades back into the woods, securing a walkie-talkie from one of the injured deputies. Later, we see that a base camp is assembled near the site. Both the State Patrol and the National Guard are summoned to assist Will in capturing Rambo. One of the officers is seen conveying a message to Rambo, who is listening from the other side via the radio he stole. The officer mentions that he has been surrounded on all sides by their forces. Shortly after, the Colonel of the United States Special Forces, Sam Trautman, arrives at the base camp, introducing himself as Rambo's mentor and former commanding officer. He tells the sheriff that Rambo has been trained to survive in harsh environments and to engage superior numbers in combat. As a result, Sam recommends that Rambo be allowed to escape to the next town in order to defuse the situation and then be permitted to surrender peacefully. However, Will, who is confident that Rambo is hopelessly outnumbered, refuses to heed the advice. Following this, Will asks Sam to talk to Rambo via radio channel and try to convince him to give himself up. However, Rambo refuses to come in. He instead condemns Will and his deputies for their abuse use, citing that they drew first blood. After this, Rambo switches the radio off, but unbeknownst to him, Will's men have managed to triangulate his position on the mountain by that time. Meanwhile, in the woods, Rambo adeptly hunts a wild pig for dinner and proceeds to an abandoned mine. There, he ignites a bonfire to cook his meal and rest for the night. As the following morning rises, a detachment from the National Guard surrounds the entrance to the abandoned mine, cornering Rambo. Ignoring Will's orders to await his arrival, the guardsmen begin firing towards the mine. They even fire a rocket launcher, collapsing the entrance and trapping Rambo inside. Believing that they have killed Rambo, the guardsmen begin to celebrate their victory. However, the pursuers are unaware that he has managed to survive by escaping deeper into the tunnel. Inside, Rambo finds some old fuel and burns fragments of his clothing to create an improvised torch. He cleverly uses the flame as an indicator of airflow in order to find an escape to the surface. After this, he ventures deeper into the mine, wading through water infested with rats. After some time of exploration, Rambo finally finds a way out, but he adopts caution to remain hidden from the pursuing officers. Before long, he hijacks a passing U.S. Army cargo truck, which seems to be transporting an M60 machine gun and sufficient ammunition. He throws out the driver, crashes through a roadblock, and returns back to the town. After a while, the truck driver relays the news of Rambo's survival to the police station. This shocks Will, and in a fit of rage, he orders his officers to kill Rambo immediately. Later, Rambo is spotted by some police officers who begin pursuing him in their car. At first, Rambo tries to ignore them, but when the officers open fire, he gets angry and hits their car hard, resulting in an accident. A big-ass 80s-style nonsensical explosion. A short while later, Rambo comes across a group of cops blocking his way at the end of a bridge. However, instead of slowing down, he speeds up the truck and smashes through the blockade. In an effort to distract the officers, Rambo blows up a gas station before setting off with an M60 machine gun. He then goes on a shooting spree in town as the residents flee. Sensing the imminent danger, Will announces to all civilians to evacuate the streets and stay somewhere safe. After this, he prepares to go after Rambo, but at the same time, he is approached by Sam. The colonel, who understands that the sheriff is outmatched, tries to convince Will to let Rambo go one more time. However, Will remains undeterred, so he arms himself and climbs up to the roof of the building, determined to end this once and for all. Meanwhile, Rambo, using his experience at guerrilla tactics, takes out most of the town's power transformers. This plunges a part of the town into complete darkness. A short time later, he breaks into a sporting goods shop that is located nearby the police station. He disperses gunpowder as well as ammunition across the floor and ignites it, which works as a distraction. At one point, Rambo spots Will on the roof, so he carefully enters the police station to confront him. Knowing that the sheriff is positioned on the rooftop, Rambo darts under the skylight and draws fire as bait. Just as he wanted, Will immediately fires back at him. Rambo then notes his position and returns fire through the ceiling, injuring the sheriff. As a result of this, Will falls through the skylight, tumbling to the floor. Rambo then steps over him, poised to end his life, but Sam arrives in the nick of time and stops him. Sam warns the soldier that there is no hope of escaping alive, because he will be killed unless he surrenders. In order to persuade him, Sam reminds him that he is the last survivor of his elite unit. He does not want Rambo to die this way. In the midst of their conversation, the police station is surrounded by the armed police force, but Sam orders them to hold their fire. At this moment, Rambo unburdens himself, revealing the horrors of war and his traumatic ordeals. He recounts the agony of witnessing his comrades' deaths in Vietnam and how he is unable to hold a regular job due to his post-traumatic stress disorder. Rambo also talks about the disdainful treatment he received from his fellow Americans when he came home. He painfully claims that he was forgotten by the country, despite sacrificing so much for them. Rambo doesn't understand how in the army he was a war hero, but back in America he can't even be trusted to work in a parking lot. Emotionally overwhelmed, he breaks down in tears as he recounts the tragic death of one of his fellow comrades at the hands of a Vietnamese child soldier. After spilling out all the pains and emotions in front of Sam, Rambo ultimately turns himself in and is taken into the custody of federal authorities. Meanwhile, the injured Will is attended to by paramedics and transported to the hospital in an awaiting ambulance. The movie ends as Rambo is escorted out of the police station and into a police van.